Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, there was an airline. In a very competitive industry, this airline delivered a level of service that was so consistent, so dependable, so reliable, that we could illustrate it here on the board with an absolutely straight blue line. And once upon a time, maybe not quite so long ago, there was a little girl named Kathy Sue. Now, Kathy Sue was a very curious little girl, like most little girls are at the age of 6 or 7. So she'd look up in the sky, and she'd see an airplane flying by with its 2 wings. And she'd say, "Mommy, Mommy, a bird!" Mommy would say, "No, no, no, sweetheart, that's not a bird. It's an airplane." Well, that was fine. It made sense. Until one day, she saw a bird fly over here and land on the fence, and she'd say, "Look, Mommy, an airplane." And Mommy would say, "Oh, no, sweetheart, this one is a bird." Well, it was very confusing for little Kathy Sue. Until one day, she went to the airport. And she saw her father actually get out of an airplane. And she said at that moment, "I understand. People go inside of airplanes. Birds go inside of people." And also at that moment, she thought that maybe one day she too would have a chance to go inside of an airplane. Well, one day it happened. Her mother came to her when she was about 10 years old and said, "Kathy Sue, I have a surprise for you. We're going to be sending you to Australia to visit your auntie. You'll be flying all by yourself because you're a big girl now." Well, in the airline industry, that's called an unattended minor. And we take very good care of unattended minors. But we ask also that the parents help prepare the children's expectations. Because, you know, their expectations before they ever fly, they start down here at 0. So we ask the parents to explain that there will be a seat just for you. There'll be a seat belt just for you. And by the time Kathy Sue came to the airport, her expectations had moved. They'd gone from 0 up. Now, her mother didn't tell her that when she got to the airport that the crew would get down on their hands and knees and put a name tag on her, that somebody from check-in would take her by the hand and bring her all the way down to the aircraft and hand her over personally to the cabin crew. Or that the cabin crew on the entire flight to Australia would take good care of her, make sure that she was well fed, give her some fun toys to play with, and when she fell asleep and it was cold, they'd come and they'd cover her up with a blanket. In fact, by the time she arrived in Australia, the level of service that she experienced was so high above her expectations that when her auntie said, "How was the flight?" she said, "Wow, I love to fly." And she did. Now, several years later, Kathy Sue's teacher came to the whole school when she was about 14 years old and said, "Children, we're going to be going on a special trip to visit your sister school in Hong Kong. You remember last year they came to visit us. This year it's our turn. We're going to see them. We'll all be flying together in a group, and I'm going to be your chaperone." Now, in the airline industry, that's called an economy class group. And once again, we asked the teacher to help prepare the children's expectations. Most of the children had never flown before, but Kathy Sue had flown before. So she was sort of the veteran of the class, and she started to explain about the seat that's just for you, the seat belt that's just for you. By the time the entire class went to the airport, everyone's expectations had gone up. Well, fortunately, everything that Kathy Sue had promised was delivered, and then some. On the flight, just before they landed in Hong Kong, the pilot picked up the microphone and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to make a special announcement to thank all the children from the school," and he named their school, "for flying on board our flight." Well, when the children in the school in Hong Kong said, "How was the flight?" all the children said, "Oh, it's good, it's good. We like to fly." Now, a few more years went by. Kathy Sue was a very bright young lady. And it was time for her to go to university. But she was going to go to university in London. Now, London's a long flight away. It was going to be her 3rd flight. She'd be flying all by herself. And, you know, because she was a big girl now, or a big young lady, she hoped nobody was going to come and put a name tag on her when she checked in. But nonetheless, because it was a long flight, her own expectations again went up. Now this time, everything she expected was there. The seat, she expected it. The seatbelt, she expected it. In fact, the only thing that happened that was a little bit above her expectations was that they showed a movie on board the flight. And it was a recent release that she hadn't seen. So when she arrived in London and her new classmates said, "How was your long flight?" she said, "Well, it was okay." And the years went by. And this bright young girl graduated from university, came back to this part of the world, and got a job working for an organization that sent her all around the region on business. Now she was flying a lot. But instead of flying economy class, she was flying business class. Her expectations were, of course, higher than before. She was paying more than ever before. She expected a bigger seat. Well, she got it. She expected better food. She got that too. But you know, since she was flying so much, she expected that maybe there'd be something a little extra, like there used to be. But now, well, for example, when it got cold on board the plane, when she was little, they used to come and put the blanket over her. Now she'd sit there shivering in the seat. She'd have to find a little button, bing bong, and then when the air stewardess came over and said, "Can I help you?" she'd say, "Could I have a blanket, please?" Couldn't bring the blanket. It wasn't like it was before. Now, Kathy Sue, being very bright, became the managing director of the company. And now, when she flew all around the region, she didn't fly business class anymore. She was flying, whoa, first class. She was paying more than before. She expected an even bigger seat, and she got it. She expected even better food, and she got that too. But she figured in first class maybe there would be some other special things. Well, one day, she went to the airport, and there was the red carpet. There was nobody in line in front of her. So she went walking right on up. She put down her ticket. She put down her passport. She put down her frequent flyer card. And she said, "Please check me in." Well, the person at check-in went, "Let's see, Miss Kathy Sue. Okay, very good to have you with us again today. Thank you for flying with our airline. Let's see. Oh, dear. Your flight has been delayed by 2 hours. I'm sorry, but there's going to be a delay." And Kathy Sue looked at her watch, and she thought, gosh, right in the middle of the afternoon, I had so much work to do at my office. I could have stayed at my office and kept working, but I had to come down for this flight. Why was this flight delayed by 2 hours? And the woman looked at the screen and said, "Oh, well, actually, you see, this airplane was late coming in from its last city. So, well, we've known that it was going to be late." And Kathy Sue said, "Hold on a second. Do you mean that you knew that this flight was going to be late before it even came in from the last city?" And the woman said, "Well, yes, ma'am, that's what it says right here." And Kathy said, "Would you please look in that computer? Do you have my office phone number in there?" Yes, ma'am, we do." "Do you have my fax number?" Yes, ma'am, we do right here." "Then why didn't you call me? Don't you think I have better things to do than come stand around your airport for all this extra time in the middle of the afternoon? What's the matter with your airline anyway? It's not like it used to be." And the woman said, "Well, ma'am, I'm sorry, but you can go stay in our lounge." And Kathy said, "I spent half my life in your damn lounge. I'm tired of your lounge." Never mind. She grabbed the boarding pass. And as she started to walk away to go through immigration to the lounge again, she noticed over her shoulder that one of the Scandinavian airlines was bringing the first-class passengers to the airport individually in limousines, having picked them up at their home or their office or at their hotel just in time for the flight. They didn't have to wait an extra moment. She thought to herself, I'm not getting service like that from my airline.